Mr. Otto. He's a computer scientist and entrepreneur, and he'll be giving a talk today. So thanks for coming. There's an extra credit sign-up sheet that we passed around. And he also brought t-shirts. So at the end of the talk, everyone gets a t-shirt. So thank you very much, and let me introduce Adrian Otto.
Alright, so my name is Adrian. I live here, actually live in Redondo Beach. I have 4 kids who are going to go to Redondo Beach Public Schools. Kate and Audrey, they're twins, they just turned 3. And Carter and Jackson, they're 6 and 7. I work for a company called Rackspace. So I'm a California native. I was born in 1975 in Santa Monica, California. I was the longest baby that had ever been born at St. John's Hospital. I was 24 inches long, 2 pounds 9 ounces. Oh. Huge baby, so no surprise they were going to be so tall. Not as tall as your which one?
Too darkened.
You're taller than me.
Yes, I am.
You must have been like 7 feet long when you were born. All right, so I went to public school. In the Culver City School District. I left Culver City going to junior in high school. I went and finished my high school in Oxnard. I lived in Camarillo, California. When I graduated from Rio Mesa High School, I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is right in the middle of California, about halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. I studied computer engineering, and that's where I had my first job that I got paid to actually use my mind, rather than using my hands and my mouth. And I was a lab technician. My job was to take care of the computers at the computer lab. And I thought that was fascinating that I could actually get paid for using my brain, because my entire life I had been training my brain to be useful, and then finally I was getting paid to do it. That was pretty exciting. I also worked as a system engineer at Xerox. I worked as a vice president of engineering at a company called Grutzik. And I worked as a chief technology officer at one of the companies that I started. So I'm what we call a serial entrepreneur, meaning that I started more than one company. The first company I founded was for myself, so that I could be a consultant. That was in 1995. That same year, I had a group of 5 other people that I started a company with called JetLink Systems. JetLink was an internet service provider. Back in the day when computers were not connected to the internet at all in your home. You had to use a telephone line to call in to get to the internet. We were the place that you called for your computer to get online. I also founded a company called Phonality in 2004. Phonality is a business telephone solution that uses everything software. So instead of a phone system being a hardware thing bolted to the wall, it's actually a computer system. And I founded a company called GetMixed last year. GetMixed is a Facebook application that lets you share music between you and another person on a postcard. But for the last 6 years, I've been working not for money, but for love. And that's what I hope that all of you have an opportunity to do in your career, where you work not because you have to, but because you love what you do. And that job for me is technical leadership. So my title at Rackspace is Senior Technology Strategist. I also do 3 other things at Rackspace. I'm a system architect, which I'll explain in a minute. I work on OpenStack, which is another thing I'll talk about in a minute, and I work on open standards. So I actually coordinate with 60 other companies on what the right way to do things are in terms of interoperating our systems. Now, because Rackspace is based in San Antonio, Texas, and I live in Redondo Beach, I have to fly back and forth. So I do that at least once a month. I'm in San Antonio, so here. Every time I go to San Antonio, I also go to Austin, Texas, because we have an office there. And my job is to talk to people and inspire them to produce greatness at Rackspace. I also have an office in San Francisco that I have to go to as well. Now, when you think about where do computer scientists go? Do they go in some kind of science lab and work on computer science? Not really like that. Computer scientists are a wide variety of different kinds of people. And they have a very fun work environment. This is a photograph of the San Antonio office, which literally has an adult-sized slide that goes 20 feet down from the top floor to the bottom floor. And if you're interested in this, there's actually a video online where we scientifically determine what is the fastest way to go down the slide. There's all of these different factors that have different theories about what would make them go down the slide faster. So if you want to know what the fastest way down the slide is, you can watch the video on YouTube. So we're also not a whole bunch of stuffy guys with lab coats. These guys are in the email and apps division. They decided one day that they would do something for their customers, so they made this little video. This kind of gives you a perspective of, it's a pretty laid-back kind of a job. Nobody got in trouble for doing this. Every time I watch this, I see something new. So just, can I have everybody raise your hand? Everybody raise your hand. Okay. If you don't recognize what the thing is, put your hand down. Put your hand down if you don't recognize it. Okay. This is a computer board. It's a motherboard for an Intel PC. So if you have a computer at home, it's not a laptop. That's what's inside of it. On that computer, you have to run software to make it do the stuff that you want. This is an example of some source code that runs software. That's something we use all the time. I've heard of blog. Everybody knows what a blog is? Okay. This is software that runs the blog. But in order to get software that actually works, you need to have somebody who designs the software. And they do so by creating something called a software architecture. So this is a software architecture for one of the projects I'm working on now. This is called Heat. Part of the stack. So all raise your hands again. Everybody up. Put your hand down if you do not know what is the cloud. Awesome! Okay. So I want you to understand why we have the cloud to begin with. So how do you solve the problem of you want to share something before you have the internet and before you have the cloud? Okay, so if it's in a cave and nobody can see it, you could maybe take a picture of it, right? Alright, so you could publish that photo in a book. But the trouble with this is, only the people who find that book can see that photo. And this applies to all information, not just photographs, but all of our collective knowledge that we have. We can solve the problem of how do I get my hands on the book by making the book electronic, right? So where does that electronic book come from? It's got to go someplace. Okay, so that's where the cloud comes in. That's where all of this stuff goes. Documents, photos, software, source code, all kinds of information is stored up there. I don't look very good as a cartoon. The key problem with the cloud today is that it's controlled mainly by companies that are trying to control access to that information for monetary reasons. Okay? So Rackspace is trying to change that by making the cloud open, by making freely available software that any company can use to stand up clouds, interoperate clouds, and make information available regardless of who's in control of it. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay, so how does Rackspace, why does Rackspace try to make, why do they go to the trouble to spend millions of dollars to hire computer scientists to make software that they give away for free? Doesn't seem to make sense, because the traditional model, 30 years ago, Bill Gates started Microsoft. They built an enterprise around producing software and selling it. People would buy the software and then do important things with it. Okay? But the trouble with this approach is that the value is not in the software itself. The value is in what you do with the software. Okay? So there's a way to monetize software that you don't charge for the software at all. You just give the software away. What you charge for is making it easy to access and use that software. And that's what we're trying to do. So what we do is we give the software away. Any company can stand up their own cloud and use it. Cloud operators like Rackspace, Hewlett-Packard, Dell, 7 or 8 others that are doing it worldwide, telecommunication companies. And they're all making their cloud services available on OpenStack. And the reason why they do that is because they all want to be doing it in a way that is interoperable, in a way that is the same. So you can take things that are running on one cloud and move them to another. So, I think that all of you should give computer science serious consideration for your career. And I have some reasons for that, and I'll get into more deeply. But first of all, it's really interesting work. So you remember I made a comment earlier in my talk about, the marvel of finally getting paid to use the brain that I've been training all of these years, and actually earning for using my brain. The problems that you have to solve are fascinating problems. It's very interesting. So if my job were doing something mechanical, if I were a factory worker all day long, I'm the kind of person that would get exceedingly bored and my life would be very, very unhappy. But because computer science is interesting, I wake up every day with a smile on my face, thrilled to go to work.